Episode 5 of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier starts to tie up a few of the stories we've seen, but really does a great job at setting us up for the endgame of this series. As always, there will be spoilers, so if you haven't seen the episode yet, go do that first, then come back here. So watchers, let's observe what we have seen. For John Walker, much of his story in this episode is coming to terms with the death of his friend Lamar, but ultimately seeming like he is unable to do so. It opens with him running away from the scene of his crime, possibly knowing deep down that what he did was wrong, but ultimately not ashamed of it because he felt like he needed to avenge his best friend. For most of the episode, we see him try to pass off what he did as the stress that comes with being Captain America. And all throughout the episode, he never seems to actually want to give up the title, making it seem like it was the most important thing to him and it's the only thing that was keeping him going. Upon running away from the scene, he is confronted by Sam and Bucky, who decide that it is finally time to take the shield from him. While they understand what the shield means and that John Walker has now desecrated that, he still believes that what he did was right, so they have no right to take the shield or the title of Captain America from him. During the fight, we can see that John's skill does match or surpass both Sam and Bucky's, but together they're able to take him down, ultimately breaking his arm and taking the shield. But at the same time, he does damage Bucky's arm and also rips Sam's wings off. So Sam is now without his wings, and Bucky may have issues with his arm in the future, although it is not shown in this episode. Upon returning to America, John has to face the consequence of his actions, where he goes to a hearing and is stripped of the title Captain America. He argues and pleads his case, but the senator who assigned him with the task has none of it, telling him he's lucky he's not facing a court-martial and ending up in prison. At this point, you can tell both the PTSD of his friend's death and the circumstances that put his mind in the state that it's in has finally taken its toll, and he is now lying to himself, believing that he is the one and only Captain America. He is not happy that the government that he served is now forcing him out, and in a way has now been convinced by another to take matters into his own hands. This person that kind of convinces him that he needs to be Captain America to find a way to take up the shield and justifies what he's done is the big cameo we were expecting in episode 5. This person is Contessa Valentina Allegra de la Fontaine, or Val for short. Not much is known about her so far in the MCU, but in the comics is a high-level agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. as well as a romantic partner to Nick Fury. Even bigger than that, she is a member of Leviathan, the Hydra-like organization, but instead being formed from the Nazis, they were formed from the communists. So there's a lot of possibilities we can see from this new character, especially because a lot of her purpose here is seemingly to offer John a job, although we don't know what that job is yet or exactly who she's working for. So this could still be setting up the Thunderbolts, or possibly working for Nick Fury. It for sure does one thing, it sets up John appearing in the MCU in the future. Throughout the rest of the episode, we see John trying to make amends with Lamar's parents, once again showing that he really does miss his friend, and is also really ashamed that he didn't actually catch the killer because he lied to Lamar's parents, saying that the man he killed was the one who killed Lamar. So John is going to be hunting Carly for revenge in the last episode, especially because in the end credit scene we see him making a shield on his own, which, although not made out of vibranium, will make him a terrifying force to deal with. Switching over to Sam and Bucky, we see them part ways shortly after retrieving the shield. Bucky leaves without saying a word off on his way to find Zemo, while Sam takes the shield and is headed off to talk to Isaiah Bradley. One important thing to note here is that he leaves his broken wings with Lieutenant Torres, who might fix them up but probably won't be used by Sam. Sam returns to America and decides he needs to talk to Isaiah Bradley to figure out his side of the story. During this interaction, we get to see a lot more of what made Bradley hate America and the Super Soldier program, explaining that him and his fellow soldiers all were forced to take the serum under the guise of tetanus, to which many of them did not survive, and the ones that did were forced to fight for the country. Isaiah also reveals why he was arrested for 17 years, explaining that he disobeyed orders to save his fellow soldiers who were captured in POW camps because all the government wanted to do was to kill them by bombing the camp to hide that they had the super soldier serum. This is where he ended up in prison for 17 years, tested on so they could find the super soldier serum in his blood. But eventually his death was faked by a nurse that decided to take pity on him, so he escaped and is actually living out his life in hiding. Even though all of this is said, Sam seems to make a decision here. some wisdom that he actually imparts on Bucky later on in the story, and that is that he needs to decide himself who he is and not let anyone else make that decision for him. So although he sympathizes with Bradley, he knows what the shield is supposed to represent, as he was a friend of Steve's for a long time, and he knew that it was time for him to take up the role of Captain America. So we see him return home, make amends with his sister, getting help from family, friends, and Bucky to fix the boat, and also eventually train to use the shield properly and have the strength to carry it physically and also carry the title and true meaning of Captain America. So it seems like he's going to work to try to elevate the position of Captain America, to try to make it a position that all people can look to once again. As for Bucky, prior to coming to help Sam work on the boat as well as flirt with Sam's sister Sarah, Bucky finally goes to confront Zemo, finding him at the Sokovian Memorial. It turns out Zemo's only reason for wanting to escape was to go visit the memorial of his home country. He says that he is not going to kill Bucky, because it seems that Zemo is beginning to realize that not all super soldiers are villains, and some, like the Winter Soldier, can be redeemed. But his thoughts on Carly is that she is far too radicalized and needs to be dealt with. And in part it seems that Bucky may agree to him at some point, as he tells Sam this later on in the story, that Zemo thinks there's only one way to deal with Carly. After Zemo states his opinion on Carly, Bucky then points a gun at Zemo and Zemo lets him, as Zemo seems ready to come to terms with what he did to Bucky, as it seems he knows what he did was wrong and may even feel bad for what he did to him. Although Bucky did not load the gun and drops the bullets on the ground, showing Zemo that he spared him, it later appears that Zemo contacted the Wakandans himself and willingly goes with them to be arrested and taken to the raft. Before the Wakandans and Zemo take off, Io does tell Bucky to stay away from Wakanda at least for a little while, so it seems that her anger towards him has subsided a little bit. But this does end with Bucky asking one more favor of Io and the Wakandans. This seems to be some sort of gift that he got for Sam before going to see Sam and help him out fixing his boat. We see a box of Wakandan design that Bucky ends up leaving with Sam after helping him out. While we don't see what's in the box in this episode, it's probably a new uniform for Falcon, likely made out of vibranium with new wings, with a very similar design that was teased in a toy that was released earlier this month. This will be an awesome addition to the Falcon and the Winter Soldier because 1, Sam's wings were ripped off by John Walker, and 2, Sam needs a suit to protect him from all the superpowered beings that are out there, especially because he himself will likely stay a normal human for the rest of his career. Sam and Bucky's final interactions in this episode is when they're both training with the shield. Sam imparts his final wisdom upon Bucky, which ends up better than any therapy session he previously had. He tells Bucky that if he really wants to make amends, he needs to not avenge those he wronged, but help those who he's hurt. Which, although Bucky says there are dozens, Sam tells him to focus on one, which will likely end up being Mr. Nakajima, which will finally give us closure on some of Bucky's first interactions in the show. On top of that, he also recommends that he starts looking at himself for what he wants to be and not what anybody else wants him to be, similar to what he learned for himself after dealing with Isaiah Bradley. As for our villains, it seems that they are ready to make their final strike, this time directly on the GRC headquarters, ready to stop the vote for the Patch Act by any means necessary. Here we see something interesting with Sharon Carter, that she is dealing with Betrock the Leaper, that she was originally the one that hired him to do the job that the Falcon thwarted, and now she has hired him to help out Carly and the Flag Smashers, bringing them weapons but also getting involved with what they are doing so Betrock can kill Falcon. This is interesting because it shows that she is kind of working with the Flag Smashers, and her previous sentiments towards the American government seem to make this seem like it's a possibility, which means that either she isn't the power broker and is working to do her best to overthrow the power broker, or is and is using Betrock to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. The episode ends with Carly's allies from New York infiltrating the GRC and shutting the power down during the vote so that they can move in and likely kill all the representatives that are present, especially because it seems that Carly has fully embraced the title of a criminal, much to the disliking of her fellow Flag Smasher. So with 1 episode left, we're going to see all the stories converge. We're going to get a huge fight in New York City. Sam and Bucky are going to have their hands full fighting John Walker, Carly, Batroc the Leaper, and possibly even members of the GRC, as I doubt by the end of this episode, Sam is going to allow this organization to continue. So we have a lot to look forward to in next week's episode, and the finale for sure is going to go out with a bang. So what are you hoping to see in the final episode of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and what did you think of this episode? And then the big question that's going to be on everyone's mind, what is Valentina's role, and what story is she helping set up? Remember, let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and then like this video and subscribe to the Marvelous Wave to assemble and join our team, and have a great day.